and welcome back to our 4-part series on the structure of government in Australia and how and why it's important to lobby. If you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, again I encourage you to go back and have a look through those, because it's important to know what's the content of those videos, and that includes the structure of government and the role of government before we get, and how laws are passed, before we get to this video, which is how to lobby. And how to lobby, today we're going to be talking about how and why we lobby. So my name is Zaya Toma, and I was a parliamentary staffer for over 10 years and an elected local government councillor for 2 terms, 8 years. And so that's my background. This video is being made for the members and friends of the Multicultural Disability Advocacy Association. And without any further ado, let's continue. So, how do we lobby? Well, the first, the most important question you have to ask is why? What do you want changed? You know, there's obviously something you have to lobby for, and that might be, repairing a street that's got a pothole in it outside your house. It might be extra funding for the National Disability Insurance Scheme. It might be making the street outside your favorite cafe more accessible, so you can use a wheelchair to get into the cafes. But for whatever reason, there is something that you want done in your community, state or country, and you need the government to do it. And so we lobby the government to make those changes. The first step is understanding the issue. You have to really understand the issue from every perspective, because there's going to be positives and negatives about what you want changed. You have to know who is affected, how they're affected. And so, for example, if it's about the NDIS, it could be up to 300,000 people that are affected. If it's repairing a pothole outside your street, it might be, the 50 people that live on the street who use the street every day and their cars are getting damaged. But whatever it is, you have to know how many people are affected and how they're affected, because that will be important when you're trying to get an issue addressed. You need to know what the solution is. There is no point in going to the government and asking them to fix something if you can't tell them what it is, because they're probably not going to look into it and try and fix it if they don't know what the solution is, unless we're talking about millions of people that are affected. Once you know the issue back to front, like the back of your hand, once you know who is affected, how they're affected, why they're affected, and you know what the solution is, the next stage is to find out who you have to talk to. It might be the head of a government department, it might be a minister, it might be your local member of parliament. But whoever it is, you need to find out who they are. You need to read their biography to understand to understand everything you can about them. You need to get their office contact details, their telephone, their email address, and you need to call them. You need to schedule a meeting. That's the first thing to do when you call the office, because you can explain the issue over the phone, but you're probably not going to get a chance to speak to the member of parliament or minister. It's probably going to be their secretary. So you're going to want to try and get an appointment with the person you want to lobby. If you can get their email address, it's very important to write a letter. In the letter, you have to outline what the problem is, who is affected, why they're affected, what the solution is. And that third step of writing a letter, that's why it's important to finish what I said in the first step, and that is understanding the issue back to front, because in the third step you're actually going to write all those points out. You're going to write out who is affected, how they're affected. You're going to write what the solution is. And for example, if it's the NDIS and you're writing to the Minister for Disability Services, you're going to say, Minister, this affects 300,000 people and their families. These are 300,000 people who might not vote for you at the next election if this issue is not addressed, because they are hurting at the moment. and that issue might be the time it takes to get applications approved, or the time it takes to get assistive technology. There are a lot of people out there who need a new scooter or wheelchair, and it can take up to 2 or 3 years to get the equipment they need. So obviously that is probably one issue which we all need to be lobbying for to get changed. And there are solutions to that, but if you say that to the minister, he might want a meeting. If you can get a meeting, that is a very good step, because now you can sit in front of them and talk to them about this issue that affects them. Preparing for the meeting is very important. You're going to want to go to the meeting, and you have to look professional, because the way you look will influence how they treat you. Now, most communication is not done verbally by talking. 90% of communication is body language. It is the way we look, the way we sound. Those things are important as well. So if you look professional and you sound professional, you're going to be treated professionally and with respect. And if you go into there and you don't know, and you sound like you don't know what you're talking about, they're probably not going to listen to you, and you've wasted their time, you've wasted your time. Have some talking points, practice in front of the mirror, saying what you're going to say, because there's something called an elevator pitch. Within 30 seconds, you have to be able to explain everything. And that basically, you've got their attention for those 30 seconds. If you can explain the issue and the solution in those 30 seconds, you're more likely to get a positive response. So, write down those talking points. Have a narrative, have a story. People love stories. If you get past the 30 seconds, then you can spend the rest of the 2 or 3 minutes that you have with them talking about a personal story, how it affects you. Get them emotionally involved in this narrative, and they're going to want to help. And if you don't get the result you want at that meeting, be persistent. Don't give up. Keep writing a letter, and also keep making phone calls. Now, once the meeting is over, thank the minister or the member of parliament for their time. Make sure you get a photo, because you're going to want to write an article as well, or a social media post. Include the photo and what was discussed at that meeting. That goes into the other ways of lobbying, which we will talk about in the next video. Thank you very much.